Hello, and welcome to Trudy and Friends. And today we're very excited because we have a very special guest along with the friends. The friends, of course, being Jerry Williams, Man About Town, and Kathy Lee, one and only. But our special guest is Dr. Delana, or is it Delana?
Delana, yes.
Delana,
Yes.
Delana Wardlow. And we're going to honor her by being here with us today because we have a very important COVID question in front of us. And it's going all over the country. So I'm hoping that her presence here will be able to straighten some of it out. But first of all, I'd like you to know about her. She's an honoree of the Phi Beta Kappa, and that's very important in her field. And right now, I think you're doing things in Nicetown with the temple there.
Yes, my office is at Temple Physicians at Nicetown. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, we're very happy to have you with us today, and thank you for being here and taking the time out. I know you've been busy with all that's going on, and I hope that you will enjoy being here to tell us how we should be treating the COVID question. Do we do it or don't we do it? That's the big one.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what about the people that are prepared to go back to normal? There seems to be a lot of uncertainty as to whether we do it now, later, in between, who does it, when do we do it, and that kind of thing. So a flood of questions will be coming your way. How do we start off?
So, one, I think we start off by addressing that COVID is still here with us. Coronavirus in 2020 was the third leading cause of death in the United States, only after heart disease and cancer. And the only way for us to be able to tackle this is to make sure that we really continue our vaccination efforts. And so that is one of our big missions, is to make sure that we are educating people about the vaccine and make sure they're receiving appropriate information so that they can make accurate decisions and informed decisions as to receiving the vaccine. So one, I think we need to start there. And two, we also need to recognize that COVID is not a preventable disease, meaning that because the vaccinations are so effective at preventing severe disease and death, that we now can essentially prevent people
Well,
dying from COVID. Now, nothing is 100%, but it significantly reduces that chance.
of course, there's a lot of questions, though. Are we ready to go without it, without the masks particularly? Or should we settle down, or is this an individual thing?
So, in regards to the mask, so last week the CDC came out and made the recommendation that anyone who is vaccinated can go without their mask in outdoor settings and most indoor settings. Now, with that being said, we do have to be prepared to move with caution because one, still many people are not vaccinated in the city of Philadelphia and in the country as a whole. Two, there's no way for us to verify who is vaccinated. So unless you could be 100% sure who's vaccinated in your area, it is recommended that you proceed with caution and definitely be prepared to wear your mask. Absolutely. Also, what we have to make sure is that when we look at moving forward, we have to be aware that not everybody is getting vaccinated at the same rate, and African Americans are getting vaccinated at a lower rate than other ethnicities. So again, we have to be cautious in our communities, making sure that we are stepping up our efforts, making sure that we receive the information so we can make this decision about vaccination. Because again, it allows us to be able to move back to a sense of normalcy. So right now, we're not able to go back 100%. We are able to make some steps, but again, be able to move with caution. So in regards to the mask, if you can't be 100% sure as to who has, masking around you, it's definitely still consider having your mask. Now, the reason the CDC made that recommendation, new studies came out last week, and it confirmed that the vaccine is not only effective at reducing severe complications of COVID and death, but it is also effective at decreasing transmission. So if you have the vaccine, and let's say in full transparency that I have been vaccinated, I did get my Pfizer vaccine, both doses. Because I'm vaccinated, I have a significantly reduced chance of contracting coronavirus and or transmitting it to someone else. And so the vaccines have been proven to be effective against the variants to date. So that is why the CDC came out with that recommendation.
Gary, that's a
Yeah.
mouthful. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, Doctor, do you know anything about the National Vaccine Organization that gives figures on how many people died from taking the corona vaccine, and also how many people have nurses have died from the corona? Do you have any numbers on that
I,
that you know of, and from the CDC?
So I don't have any direct numbers on how many nurses have died from COVID, but I do know that there have been a a good amount of people who've died from COVID in the medical profession: nurses, doctors, assistants. There have been many people who have unfortunately died from coronavirus. Unfortunately, I do not have that number in front of me. In regards to deaths from the coronavirus vaccine, we do know that unfortunately there was a one death that was associated with the Johnson and Johnson vaccine with the rare blood clot disorder that formed. Now, out of the millions of doses that have been given, there essentially was 8 people who developed a rare blood clot. 8 out of 15 million who developed a rare blood clot. Unfortunately, there was one death. Now, however, what we must also realize is that blood clots commonly happen from other reasons as well. And that could be from travel, prolonged travel. That could be from prolonged inability to move around after a recent surgery or an illness. That could be from smoking. That could be from estrogen or oral contraceptives. That could become, increased risk from smoking or having a recent surgery. So, and those risks are higher than your risk of developing a blood clot complication from the vaccine. So, with that being said, the vaccine is still considered to be significantly more beneficial than it is riskier.
So my question is, why is it that they tell people that you can take the vaccine and you can get the second shot and you could take off your mask or you can keep your mask on, but you can still get the corona? Why
Because
is
you
that?
can,
Like, it's confusing to people like those that have not taken the shot. Wouldn't it be more convincing if they were to be consistent with what they're telling people and what people are receiving information, as opposed to like just putting it out there as you go along so that people feel more confident? Why isn't all the organizations on the same page at the same time to deliver the positive message to people? Because that's the problem that I'm hearing from other people that haven't taken the shot, is that hearing different stories. Like, there's an organization which I mentioned to you about, the National Vaccine Organization, which monitors vaccinations worldwide and on a regular basis. And
mhm.
what they have stated is that there were several people, not just that one person, that passed over taking the vaccine. So you didn't have the information on that one, but there is an organization. Do you know about that organization? And if you don't, then maybe we need to research that information so that we can really give the people the facts.
Well, so let
I'm
me
just
just say,
saying. I'm
so
just
when,
saying.
so I'm sorry.
I'm just
I'm
saying. That's the name of the show.
Oh, okay, okay. So, and in regards to when people have a vaccination and and someone has a death at the same time of the vaccination, um, many people assume that it was due to the vaccine, but it could have been due to other complications or other disease states that the patient may have experienced. So, and when you say that, yes, we have to make sure we have clear, consistent messaging. I agree with that 100%, Mr. Williams, 100%. However, with COVID, the messaging will change as we get new data, new information. Now, the information has always been that the COVID vaccine will prevent you from getting severe death, severe disease, and or complications. However, you still could potentially contract COVID. However, it would be a milder form. So that message has been delivered. But also, what we have to make sure is that so when people get COVID, people when they get the COVID vaccine, there is still a chance that you could potentially get COVID. We're not saying that it's 100% that you won't get the disease, but we're saying it's to prevent you from getting severe disease, having to go into the hospital, your lungs failing, going on a ventilator, and then subsequently dying. So again, we are delivering the message that the vaccine is effective at doing that, preventing severe complications and diseases and preventing you from dying.
So do
Kathy?
you, so one other question. So do you think healthy people have died from taking the vaccine, or healthy people have died from the corona, or is there people that are just have extenuating ailments that have died from corona?
Well,
Predominantly, they ended up with the respirator, because I know for a fact that respirators is pure oxygen, and I don't think the body can take pure oxygen. Am I right?
so so to answer your question, people who have comorbid conditions, people who have chronic medical illnesses, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney disease, lung disease, those persons are at higher risk for developing severe complications of COVID and subsequent death. So yes, people who have and people who are of older age have higher risk of those things happening. However, we have unfortunately seen young people die of COVID. So less commonly, but it does happen. And what we do know is that when these things do occur, there really is no way to predict 100% who is going to develop those severe complications and or death if you haven't had the vaccine. However, comorbid conditions, as you have alluded to, will definitely increase a person's risk of developing complications and requiring a ventilator support or requiring support for their heart, or subsequently having strokes or blood clots and or death. So yes, people who have comorbid conditions. But again, I want to be clear that we have seen young people die of COVID, or people who are healthy who die of COVID.
Okay.
Kathy?
Yes. Okay. I understand everything that you're saying, and I agree with a lot of what you. Actually, I agree with all of what you said, Doctor Wardlaw. But there is the New York Times today said that there are four groups of people that are vaccine. They don't want to take the vaccine. You're skeptics, you're cost anxious, you're distrustful people, and you're watchful people.
Mm-hmm.
And they fall into those four kind of main groups. And just piggybacking off of the comorbidities that you talked about, you serve a community that we have historically been underserved. And you mentioned cultural competency in the Inquirer news. In the Inquirer, I think it was in the Upside in February. I saw that February 23rd. And I guess my question then is, if our community suffers from a lot of these comorbidities, it seems natural that we're going to have more of the COVID deaths, and also because of where we live and how we live, the close proximity. So how are you? Because I know you're a member of the Black Doctors Consortium, because my husband got his COVID shot through you guys. How are you dealing with the four different categories of people I described? The skeptics, the cost anxious people, because if they take it and get sick, they don't have insurance. The distrustful people that Gary speaks of, and the watchful people who are kind of like rats. Rats won't eat from a new food source.
Mm-hmm.
They send someone else out to test it first, and then they wait.
So to answer your question, skeptical people, yes, we have to answer their questions. We have to be able to give people the opportunity to ask questions. And again, if people have concerns, and we have to be able to give them the information, give the opportunity to ask their questions and give them the information so that they can make an informed decision. Two, I think you said there are the people who have the comorbid conditions, you said, Ms. Lee. So
Yes.
so comorbid conditions, again, because African Americans carry the burden of so many chronic illnesses. And that is a result of, systemic racism, lack of access to quality health care, lack of access to proper food in many areas, lack of access to many being able to get out and get exercise in many areas because of, their safety issues and safety concerns. So those are systemic issues that definitely have to be addressed, because that made us more vulnerable to COVID to begin with, just as you said. So that it made us more likely to be prone to getting COVID and developing complications. So what we have to do is, one, make sure that we are, as a country, we have to make sure that we are making people have access to quality health care. Have access to quality health care. Making sure that people can see their doctors on a regular basis. Making sure people can get preventive measures taken, mammograms, colonoscopies, pap smears, so that we can catch any diseases at its earliest stage, right? Making sure that people can get medications, making sure people have access to adequate food, making sure that we address issues with education, because we know that quality of education is dependent upon one's zip code, and that definitely has an impact on, poverty and lack of access to healthcare, and making sure that we address cultural competency is key, because African Americans only make up approximately 5% of physicians in this country. Data has shown that people are more compliant with physicians that they feel they have something in common with. All right. But right now, we're not going to fix that number here today, that 5% rate of African Americans in this country being doctors. However, we have to make sure that all doctors are culturally competent, so that they are aware of the challenges of the communities that they serve, so that they're aware of the issues, so that when people come in with questions or concerns as to why they're not wanting to take a vaccine, or why they not want to take a medication, or why they not wanting to participate in a particular therapy, these doctors are competent and aware of the sensitive issues, so that it's not just swept under the carpet or swept under the rug or disregarded. Then you said that there are people who are watching, and there are people who want to watch. They want to see the long-term data. However, COVID is killing us now. COVID has killed over 580,000 people in the country. So yes, we have to deal with all these other issues again, but right now COVID is the pink elephant in the room. And so we have to save our communities now. So this is why we have to address COVID now. We do know that most side effects that we've seen from the vaccine is indeed side effects: headaches, fatigue, body aches, fevers, chills. Those are side effects and not true adverse events. And those can happen in people who take the vaccine, but they're usually gone in about 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days max. But what we always have to consider is the side effects of the vaccine can't be worse than the disease itself. And we do know that COVID is devastating. We do know that COVID is more devastating to our communities. So that is why we have to address the issues now. And we are monitoring the safety profiles and the protocols. That is why Johnson & Johnson put a pause on their vaccine distribution. Well, the FDA put a pause on their vaccine distribution when they realized that there were some people who had developed this this rare blood clotting disorder. So again, we just have to, Ms. Lee, I think, meet people where they are, understand that they have questions or concerns, and answer those questions honestly and appropriately.
Just have one more question. I'm going to turn it back over to Trudy. I know you're a member of the Black Doctors Consortium. Are you implementing any types of follow-up plans to follow the people that have been vaccinated, like to see if there are, like if you have any autoimmune diseases, if whether or not the vaccine kind of exacerbated that? Am I making sense?
Well, you are making sense, but Ms. Lee, I have not volunteered with the Black Doctors Consortium since I've been back in my office of recent. I did participate in their testing efforts when COVID.
Then you, in general, as a doctor, are you planning on following up? I know you're going to follow them up, but I'm talking about relative to the people that were vaccinated that you see. Are you going to track and see if anything comes up from that? Because I think that's part of the problem with the distrusters and the watchful and the skeptics.
Absolutely, because when I see patients in my office, I ask anybody who comes through the door. We talk about the COVID vaccine. Have you had the COVID vaccine? Are you considering the COVID vaccine? And then we talk about if they had what their experience was, if they had any side effects, or if they're having any problems now. Because not only do we have to see if it's caused any exacerbation of any medical problems, which with people who have immunocompromised states, or people who have these immunocompromised conditions, it's not that the vaccine will cause them any additional harm, but it's that the vaccine may not have a strong of a response because their immune systems are weakened. But we follow that. I follow every patient, ask them if they're having any symptoms or any new problems or concerns. And we also have to monitor for these long haulers. We know
That's what
patients
I'm
who
going.
have.
That's what I'm going at. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yes, we also have patients who have um, long-term lung problems, long-term heart problems, long-term memory problems, long-term concentration problems. So we have to monitor for all of these things. Absolutely, Ms. Lee. And that is why it's important that people develop a relationship with a primary care physician so that these things can be monitored. Absolutely.
Doctor,
Thank you.
Yes.
we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with you to answer some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay right there.
Okay.
We're back. And Doctor, the one question I have for you right now, where do you see this vaccine going? Is it going to be something that's going to be continuous, like a flu shot every year, follow up? Or are we finished with it? Are there new ones coming out? Where do you see the future for it?
So good question, Ms. Haynes. So the way it's determined if it's going to be a seasonal shot or if it's going to be if you're going to need a booster is if the immunity to the current shot starts to decrease or starts to wane. As of now, we do know that from the data that we have to date that the vaccines are still effective. But if we start to lose immunity or if we start to realize that the vaccine are not as effective against the variants, that will determine if we need a booster. And speaking of variants, that is why it is very important for most of the population to get vaccinated because variants develop when there's a mutation in the virus, which allows it to keep changing so that it can live. But in order for a virus to do that, it needs live hosts. That's us. So we can decrease the number of live hosts by increasing the number of vaccinated people. So again, that will also determine if we need booster shots or if we need a seasonal vaccine like the flu. But if we do, we're prepared to handle that as we do have multiple shots that have boosters and we have the flu shot, which is seasonal that we get every year.
Kathy, do
I
you
got a,
have any last question?
Yes, I do. I think I do. Because I'm not going to get into attenuated viruses and non-attenuated and all the mRNA. I'm not going to get into all of that. I think my final question is, but basically what you're saying to everyone is they should really walk in wisdom. And when you walk in wisdom, you cannot, you know, right now wearing the masks for, you know, for the time being during the pandemic, and it's a global pandemic. I'm just going to reiterate that it's still a personal choice for those. And you answered the questions that I asked, and I do intend to wear my mask until I know what's going on. And how can people contact you?
So people can contact me. One, they can reach me at my office. I'm at 4350 Germantown Avenue, which is Temple Physicians. I also can be followed on social media. I have, for those who don't know, I have an identical twin sister, and we're known as the Twin Sister Docs. And our mission is three T's: trust, translate, transform. We serve as trusted messengers, and we provide accurate information to the community, and that translate into people becoming advocates in their healthcare, and that leads to transformational outcomes. And you can find us on all our social media handles at Twin Sister Docs on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we also have a website at thetwinsisterdocs.com. So you can find me on all those channels.
I'm following you today.
Okay. Thank you.
Gary, do you have the
yeah,
last question?
yeah. I have a question. Maybe you might
A
be able to
question, not
answer
a
it, Doc.
statement.
It's a question. Doc might not be able to answer, but I'm thinking like since it was a worldwide catastrophic incident that took place, and we knew about it years and years ago, from Obama's administration, where he stated that there's going to be a pandemic coming, and a lot of people missed it, and they didn't think it was going to really come. Why didn't all the pharmaceutical companies come together and produce a vaccine where they put their heads together? But I think because of the profit margin of this thing, where it's turning into a thing where you have to separate money from health. And it seems like a lot of things in this thing is a lot of generation of monies. So it's not really positive either to get into the money aspect of it when people are dying. So why didn't they just come together and produce one vaccine that would have been beneficial to cure or even have hope to cure this virus?
So and let me answer your question in regards to, I know. So yes, President Obama had the foresight to put together a pandemic task force, and and he put all those things in order. But in order for the COVID vaccine to be made, even though messenger RNA is this is the first time that it's being used and vaccines being administered to people, messenger RNA is not a new technology. That technology has been being developed for well over 10 years because COVID-19 is SARS-CoV-2. We had a SARS-CoV-1 outbreak in 2003, which was systemic inflammatory respiratory syndrome. It didn't make pandemic proportions, but it was an outbreak. And that is when scientists shortly thereafter started working on this messenger RNA technology. So not a new technology, but to answer your question, why didn't they come together sooner? Because we had to wait for the genetic code of COVID-19, coronavirus 19. This was a novel coronavirus. The coronavirus had mutated, so we couldn't prepare for this COVID-19 prior to the pandemic. Yeah, we did need the task force, but we could not have the actual vaccine itself in hand, ready to go, because we needed the genetic code of COVID-19 to be able to do that. And to answer your question is, why didn't everybody just come together for one vaccine? Well, it's always better to have one option, more than one option available. And that's with many treatments and medication. You always have, more than one blood pressure medicine that's available, more than one, diabetes medication available, so that as we are monitoring the side effects, if there are side effects of one vaccine, hopefully there won't be side effects to another vaccine, and we'll still have options available to us.
Dr. Wardlaw,
Yes, ma'am.
you are very good, and we have so much more to talk to you about, but I think we'll have to do that on social media. And so anyone who needs more information or would like to ask you, they can get in touch with you that way, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And we want to thank you so much for being our guest today, Gary Williams, Kathy Lee, and they've been very effective in asking you questions that kept you going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, and thank you. Join us next time.
Thank you.